Welcome to the Steps in Purpose podcast with Edie Ann. This podcast explores emotional awareness, faith, and purposeful living through short, reflective conversations designed to help you notice where you are and take your next step with clarity. Thanks for being here. Have you ever stopped and wondered if the life around you is echoing the thoughts within you? Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I want to talk about something that quietly shapes our days, our relationships, our reactions, and even the results we keep seeing show up in our lives. I want to talk about being mindful of our thoughts and how like attracts like. This is such an important conversation because, listen, thoughts are never just floating around doing nothing. Thoughts carry weight. Thoughts stir emotion. Thoughts influence our behavior. Then behavior begins creating patterns, and patterns begin producing results. And after a while, those results can feel so familiar that we start calling them our life. That is why this matters, okay? Thoughts plus, before I start blurting this out, this is something I want you to write down. It's an equation that I created, but I believe that it has so much merit in our world. Are you ready? Thoughts plus emotions equal actions. Thoughts plus actions equal results. You want me to say it again? All right. Thoughts plus emotions equal actions. Thoughts plus actions equal results. All right. When we are disengaged, and I'm talking about the emotion gauge right now. When we're in disengaged, there's often very little inner conversation because everything else feels muted. It feels distant. We're kind of flat, right? Life can feel heavy in a really quiet way. A person in disengaged may move through the day with very little spark, very little expectation, and very little energy to even examine what's happening inside of them. All right, it's almost as if life is happening around them while they're standing slightly outside of it. All right, so then we move into survival and victim, and boy, our mind gets loud. All right, in survival, thoughts can become constant. The mind starts scanning, planning, bracing, and trying to stay ahead of the next hard thing, right? It starts sounding like pressure. You have to keep going. You have to hold this together. You have to figure this out. You got to stay ready, right? So those are the things that you're processing. There's a weight in that space because the mind believes it must stay alert at all times, right? And in victim, the thought pattern often shifts into a different kind of loop. It can sound like hurt, defeat, deep emotional exhaustion, right? Why does this always happen to me? Why do I keep carrying the heavy stuff? Why does life keep feeling unfair? This pain in that space, and that pain often wants someone to finally understand how heavy it feels. Okay? So both of those levels are thought heavy. All right? And when those thoughts become repeated, which they do in those levels, emotional and familiar, they begin shaping the way a person shows up in life. Okay? A thought may seem small in the beginning, yet once it gets repeated enough, it starts to take up space, right? Once emotion gets attached to it, it gains even more power. Then actions begin lining up with it, sometimes so quietly that a person hardly notices it's happening. That is how cycles are formed, right? You've heard that a habit takes 21 days to form. A habit is done over and over and over again for 21 days, right? That's how the cycle is formed. So if someone keeps thinking life is hard, that thought begins carrying an emotional tone, right? It may stir heaviness, disappointment, tension, defeat. Those emotions begin shaping the behavior. The person may pull back, expect less, stay guarded, speak from frustration, or walk into situations already carrying weight of what they believe might be coming. Then, when life feels heavy or hard again, right, the result looks like confirmation. And so what felt like a thought became a pattern. And what became a pattern started creating more of the same. That is the heart of this conversation today. Okay? Our thoughts, you guys, if you don't know this or understand this, our thoughts are powerful because they participate in the outcome. This is about awareness. Life brings real pain. It brings real loss, real betrayal, real hardship, real wounds, and those experiences leave deep impressions on the mind and heart. Still, our thoughts play a role in what gets reinforced, what keeps repeating, and what continues growing inside. And so if life brings real pain, it can bring real joy. If life brings real loss, it can bring real gain. You get what I'm bringing, right? Mindfulness matters, okay? And mindfulness is simply noticing. It's noticing what keeps running through your mind. It's noticing which thoughts come up over and over again. It's noticing what emotions keep attaching themselves to those thoughts. It's noticing what actions follow and what results keep showing up afterwards, right? Sometimes the most revealing thing a person can do is listen to the way they talk to themselves inside their own head. Because your inner voice becomes the atmosphere your life grows in. If your inner world is full of pressure, fear, bitterness, and hopelessness, and even resentment or defeat, those thoughts are planting seeds. They're shaping how you respond to relationships, how you carry yourself in your work, how you approach healing, how you show up in faith, and how you walk through purpose. A person who constantly thinks they are overlooked may begin showing up hesitant, guarded, and already braced for disappointment. A person who constantly thinks they have to carry everything alone may begin showing up tired, controlling, and unable to receive support. A person who constantly thinks life is against them may begin walking through the day already expecting friction. And expectation has a way of coloring everything it touches. That is why being mindful of our thoughts is such a powerful practice. It helps us see the connection between what we keep thinking, what we keep feeling, what we keep doing, and what keeps showing up. It also helps us understand why survival and victim can feel so exhausting. In those levels, the mind is rarely quiet. It's replaying, rehearsing, protecting, reliving, and interpreting everything through the lens of what has already hurt, right? That creates an emotional atmosphere that feels heavy. And that heaviness begins to influence actions without a person even realizing it. Then life starts feeling like it keeps proving the thought right. That's where so many people get stuck. They keep waiting for life to change while the inner script stays the same. Yet the inner script, it's been shaping the posture, the energy, the response, and the result all along. Once a person becomes aware of that, something powerful begins to happen. The thought may still show up, and it's going to, right? Yet the awareness changes the relationship to it. The emotion becomes easier to recognize. The pattern becomes easier to see. The action becomes easier to understand. Then, slowly, the result begins shifting because the person no longer blindly lives from the same mental loop. Okay? That is where the change begins. It begins with noticing. It's going to begin with listening. And it's going to begin with becoming honest about what has been running through the mind on repeat. Right? And before we close today, I want to leave you with one simple tip that you can use in the moment when you catch your mind running away with you, right? When you've got that thought on loop. Okay? So let's say you catch your thought. Say, hold on. That is a thought, not a fact. That one line can create a pause fast, right? So you thought the thought, you're like, wait a minute, that's not fact. Hang on. Sometimes our minds start talking so quickly, so often that the thought feels true. Just because it's loud and familiar, right? Yet a thought is still just a thought until we keep feeding it, until we feel it, until we follow it. So when your mind starts spinning, just stop for a second and say, hold on. That is a thought, not a fact. It gives you a chance to breathe, right? It gives you a chance to settle yourself and to choose what you want to give energy to next. Okay? It is simple, yet it brings you back into the moment and helps you step out of autopilot. And give yourself grace, guys. Listen, you might catch yourself too late, but the fact that you've noticed is half the battle, okay? And the more you start noticing, the easier it will get to notice. And the quicker you'll notice. Okay, so today I want to invite you to pay attention. Pay attention to what keeps repeating in your mind. Pay attention to the thoughts that feel familiar. Pay attention to the ones that stir heaviness, that are stirring some fear, some frustration, right? That are giving you some pressure or that are making you feel defeated. Pay attention to the emotional tone your thoughts are carrying. And ask yourself this: what kind of actions are these thoughts producing in me? And what kind of results might these actions be creating in my life? Let that sit with you today. Let it be something you notice with honesty and compassion. Let it be an invitation, okay, to become more aware of those inner conversations that may be shaping more of your life than you realized. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with someone. Share it with someone you think they might need it too, okay? Subscribe to the podcast. Come spend some more time with me at my website at edieanne.com, edieanne.com. You'll find some more encouragement, some insight, and other tools there to help you. Thanks for spending this time with me. Until next time, keep stepping in purpose.